Let's bring back in our panel, Ron Brownstein, CNN political analyst and columnist with Bloomberg, Democrat Katie Porter, member of the House and ran for governor and senator here in California, and Matt Klink, a Republican strategist as well as the owner and president of Klink Campaigns. Ron, part of the reason that this race has gotten so much national attention is because not of the word Democrat, but the Democratic Socialists of America, something that Francesca Hong is proudly a part of, something no other Democratic nominee for governor has ever been a part of. And if she loses, is that a big loss for that movement?
Well, you know, as we've talked about, the gains for the left to this point, to last week, had primarily, not exclusively, primarily come in safe blue areas. The three Mondani candidates in New York, Harris won over 70% in all those districts. Denver district won by Democratic Socialist. Harris won over 70% in that district. Then Abdul El-Sayed won in a true swing state, Michigan, one of the states at the core.
Who's not a Democratic Socialist.
But has similar positions.
Then adjacent. but that is important.
And then
that
here,
he says, I'm a capitalist.
Totally. And then this time, you have the actual, someone who identifies as a Democratic Socialist, potentially the Democratic nominee, in a state where, as your last guest noted, a great night for the Democrats is when they win by 25,000 votes, right? It is a very competitive state at the heart of presidential politics. And again, where you have not only kind of the symbolic implications of whether someone like that can win, the practical implications. If Democrats lose this seat to Tom Diffany, there's going to be complications in 2028 in certifying, in all likelihood, given the way that he responded to the 2020 election. So the reason why this election, I think, has gotten so much attention, just as Michigan, was because it showed this Democratic, this progressive wave to the point of socialism extending outside, breaking beyond the boundaries where it had been contained and moving into places where Democrats have to win in November.
And Congressmember, a lot of people think of California as so far left or so far blue. But before we gerrymandered our elections, we had close congressional races where you actually had to run against a tough Republican and win, which is something that you did in Orange County and helped to flip a district there. You know what it's like to be in a close race against a Republican, and that's what we're looking at here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I think, look, the point that Stephen O'Leary made about Crowley's administrative experience, I give him that. I think that's right. He knows he's had experience governing. That's great. He's running for governor. What he hasn't had experience with is the entire multi-bajillion-dollar Republican right-wing machine sort of coming at you. And that is a force to feel.
You know what that feels like.
And I know what that feels like, and he doesn't. Now, to be fair, neither does Francesca Hong.
She's got a taste of that.
She had a little taste of it.
She's gotten a few appearances on Fox News in the last week. Just a few.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think both of them, in some ways, to me, what's sort of, as a Democrat, most disappointing about this election is this is what we've got. Two relatively untested, relatively, unvetted.
You think it feels like a JV squad?
Well, I don't want to say that because, look, Francesca is a trailblazer. She's the first Asian American woman elected in Wisconsin. She's built this campaign out of nothing. So kudos to her for doing it. And you heard great things about Crowley. He's brought homelessness down. That's something California hasn't been
able to do that here.
Hasn't been able to figure out how to do that here in California.
We could elect somebody who did that.
If you're asking her, if you're me and you're saying, what does this race contribute to where Democrats go nationally? I think the answer is not much.
Well,
because neither of these people, I think, is likely, especially Crowley, is not going to be a major player in shaping the voice of the Democratic Party going forward.
They were each kind of the stand-ins, right? I mean, Sarah Rodriguez was supposed to be the candidate of the center, and Mandela Barnes was supposed to be the candidate of the left, and neither of them really got traction. I would say if Francesca Hong is the nominee and she loses, that would have an impact on Democrats going forward.
28 in a very big way.
I still think
what would that message be?
No, look, I think it's the same thing with El-Sayed. I mean, the left is going to come out of the 28 primary season with a certain amount of momentum, but the story could change depending upon the results in the general election. You saw again here, there are a lot of Democratic voters who are worried about electability. Hard to get back to the White House without winning Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin for Democrats. If El-Sayed doesn't win in November, and if Hong is the nominee and she doesn't win in November, November, I think that really changes the interpretation of this going into 28 for whoever will be the champion of the left, whether it's AOC or someone else.
Because progressives, Matt, have so often felt like they've been boxed out of the general election,
Well,
sometimes by rigged elections, they would claim, by the Democratic National
2016
Committee.
and 2020.
And so they haven't got that shot because and so now you're getting your shot in Michigan, and you may be getting your shot in Wisconsin. Here it is. Put up or shut up.
They've said, give us the chance. Give me the ball, coach. I'm ready to carry.
I can only prove electability if I'm on the ballot.
allowed to be on the ballot. And now they have their opportunity in Michigan. I think it's going to be probably a closer race than it would have been if the other candidate had won. And look, I think that if Hong wins, $3.6 million from the Republican Governors Association spent to put her in that seat. They want to run against her. She's a much easier target. Crowley may be a progressive, but he will run as a more conventional Democrat, and that will create some problems, but it'll still be a really close race.
Yeah. And Crowley would likely make almost no national headlines, right? And this becomes more of a local race, whereas Francesca Hong becomes more of a national story and a big test of the Democratic Socialists of America.
Yeah.
But let me say, Francesca's policies, similar to Abdul, that Abdul al-Sayed ran on, are very popular things. Medicare for all may not be what the typical establishment Democrat is doing in Washington, but believe you me, when you poll Democratic voters, they like it. Getting money out of politics.
Until you put a cost on to Medicare for all.
But things like the data center, taking a position on that, that is a looming issue where establishment Washington doesn't have much to say. But the population does.
Well, Republicans and
small point of fact, though, unlike I think your position and Tom Steyer, she does not support trying to do that at the state level. She supports it as a national policy, but basically says it's not feasible for a state to do it, and she just wants to expand Badger Care, their Medicaid expansion. But the basic point is right. I mean, part of what we've seen in these primaries, I think, is really important. The center has not really been willing to challenge some of the left ideas. I mean, you have not, Becerra did not, presumably by the end of that campaign, support Medicare for all, but he wouldn't say that on the stage. And the same thing, I mean, Haley Stevens did not challenge Medicare for all. She did not challenge abolishing as opposed to reforming ICE. The center is not really engaging with the left in these primaries. They're basically saying these positions make them unelectable, not trying to make a case against them to Democratic voters, which is what Biden and Buttigieg did in 2020.
Last word, Matt.
There's a reason why there is so much oxygen around these Democratic socialists and super progressive candidates. They actually are saying, we hate Donald Trump, but these are our ideas. The mainstream of the Democratic Party, they have one thing: orange man bad. Nothing else.
Right.
And reverse a lot of the things he's done.
And that's the challenge right now. That's why.
So what is, I mean, let me, over time, but what is the mainstream Democratic platform of what to do? What is the establishment Democratic plan if they take over?
I don't know why you're looking at me. I ran.
I know you ran on ideas.
As a more progressive Democrat.
I know, but I still don't know what. I cover this for a living. I've moderated debates, and I could not tell you what the actual Democratic plan is for governing the country.
Look, and I think that is our problem. And I think that is a problem that we are not going to solve unless we get some new people into Washington. They don't have to be new progressive people. That's why I think it's exciting that we're seeing some new, fresh blood, even out of the moderate wing of the Democratic Party. We have to be the party of good ideas. Orange man bad. It's true, but it's not a new idea.
No, exactly.
We've been doing that now for 10 full years. We have that same line.
You can get through a midterm election with that, really. I mean,
but
you can't get through a presidential. Well, look, you're not going to
Right.
fix the country very much while he's president in terms of passing Democratic ideas.
And you're probably not passing Medicare for all or abolishing ICE or any of that in its time around either. All right, Katie Porter, Matt Klink, Ron Brownstein. We'll have more of you guys coming up.